Hey, welcome back. Now that we've created our project, it's time to start building out the structure of our project. That includes things like project teams to help define access for our users, phases to help plan our test, and features to ensure that we have maximum coverage of the product while we're testing. So in this video, we'll learn how to create those project teams. We'll discover phases and features and how to plan them, and we'll also talk about the test plan spreadsheet. Now, there's a lot of content in this video, so I've included the timestamps on the screen now. So if you'd like to move to any specific part of the video, you're more than welcome to. Now we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and access our newly created project and start creating some project teams so we can define access and different categories for our users while we're testing. So I'm here at the community home, and you can see that we have our new Solaris project right in the middle. So I'll click on this, and it'll bring us right to the project. Now you can see that we end up in a different dashboard here. This is called our project overview dashboard, and we cover all of our project dashboards in detail later on in the course. And I need to get to the project kickoff dashboard. Thankfully, we include a very helpful button up at the top of the menu bar. And this is persistent. You can click on this at any time and travel directly to the project kickoff dashboard. So I'll do that. And there's also a little X within that button. So if you ever want to remove that from your menu bar, let's say you're in week 3 and you're all done with the project kickoff dashboard, you can remove that just like so. And there you go. You're all set. But let's go ahead and create some project teams. So I'll scroll down to our second panel here. You can see that we have all of our different team types, everything from managers to support observers, all the way down to applicant. And if I click on any of these boxes, I can see which teams belong in this team type. So we've got one manager team, that's our project manager team. We have a support team, standard observer team, participant, applicant, etc. Now, if I want to create a brand new team, it's very easy. We have a button right next to the team list. And by clicking on that, I can travel directly to our create a team page. I'm going to go ahead and create a technographic team. This is for iOS users within our project. Users can actually belong to more than one team in a project. So you can have a tester who's in the main participant team with every other tester, but they also belong to the iOS team or the Android team or the United States team, etc. So we'll go ahead and title this. And we'll also give it a description, totally optional. Perfect. And we can see that that user role right there is participant. So they are going to be testers. They're the people who are actually using the test units, testing everything, all that stuff. Right here, you can see we have a copy access option. And this allows me to copy access from any of the teams in that team type. So we could transfer all of the team access roles from participants into this team. So anyone who just belongs to this team also has the same kind of privileges within the project. But since this is a team that's really more for organizational purposes, just sorting our iOS users all into one bucket, I'm going to say none, leave blank. So this team by itself doesn't have any access roles, but all the users in this team are also going to belong to the participant team, and that's going to grant them all the access that they need. Target users, how many users am I expecting to have in this team? I'm going to put down 25. Let's say our test plan calls for 25 iOS users and 25 Android users. Feedback impact factor. This is kind of a neat feature when creating a team. If I click on this, you can see that we've got a couple different options here, everything from unimportant to extremely important. And what this does is it makes sure that the feedback submitted by users in this team has more or less weight. So for example, let's say you've got a group of testers who are just outstanding stellar testers. They've been on 4 or 5 tests, and they always supply really great feedback and insights, and they're very engaged and motivated. You could put those testers into a VIP team and set their feedback impact factor as a more important or extremely important. And likewise, you could maybe leave it neutral for testers who are just here, they're just your standard testers, etc. Again, this is an organizational team, so I'm just going to leave it as neutral, but kind of a cool thing that you can do there with your testers. Now, at the moment, I don't have any other users in our project. I just have my standard kind of project manager user right here. But if I wanted to add them to this team, all I could do is just double click on that, and you can see it moves them over to the team. So when this team is created, they will automatically be a part of the team. I don't want my project manager to be on the iOS team, so we'll move him back up. And now that we've got everything in place, we'll click Submit. And there you go. Right below, you can see we have our iOS users team right there. I'll go back to Management. We'll click on Dashboards. We'll travel back to the Project Kickoff dashboard. And you'll see that this team is actually now populated in our second panel here. So we've got those two participant teams. If I click on this, we have participants and iOS users. So that's all great and in place. Now that we know how to set up our project teams, let's go ahead and learn about phase types and how to create phases. All right, so let's go ahead and plan and structure our projects using phases. And then once we have all of our phases set, we can go ahead and start adding features. So I'll start at the Project Kickoff dashboard right here. I'm going to scroll down to panel number 5, Schedule Phases and Features, and I'll click on Create a Phase. Now this is where we can name the phase, give it an optional description, but most importantly, define its phase type. Now we've got a number of different phase types within Centercode, and they help define where we're at in terms of the project. Now those 3 phase types are going to be onboarding, engagement, and closure. So onboarding is all about preparing testers for the project. It's where we're doing things like recruiting them, vetting them via our qualification surveys, adding those qualified testers to the project as participants. We're sending out test units. We're educating them about what's required in the project itself. So it's all about bringing them in and getting the stage set for testing, which we do in our engagement phases. Now, engagement focuses on completing activities and testing features. So we can split these up into multiple different weeks of engagement phases. You can see on the screen, we've got basic usage, advanced usage, outdoor usage, etc. And we can populate those engagement phases with specific features. So for example, basic usage would be week 1 of testing. So maybe we want our testers to focus on things like unboxing, setting up the test unit, getting accounts added and created, etc. And then when we move on to advanced usage, we're kind of diving a little deeper into the product's feature set. So that's what engagement is about. It's going to be the bulk of your test, and it's where we do all of our testing. Now, closure focuses on wrapping up the test or wrapping up a specific kind of leg of the test. So this is where we are, thanking testers for their participation. We're triaging those last pieces of feedback. We're getting our results to our stakeholders. It's all about closing things out. Now, you may notice that we have a pause phase here in our list of phases. Now, pause phases aren't necessarily a phase type that you can configure, but instead they exist when there is no phase planned between 2 phases. So let's say advanced usage ends on the 17th and outdoor usage is going to begin on the 29th. We would have a pause phase automatically added in between those 2 phases. Testers are not prohibited from testing during a pause phase. It just means that we don't have a set of features for them to test at that moment. We're not onboarding, and we're also not closing out the test. So it really is kind of like, hey, we don't have any focus right now, but please go ahead and keep testing and keep submitting your feedback. Phase types also govern how Ted, our virtual teammate, operates within Centercode and within your project. So he's going to have focused messaging based on the phase type. So he's going to be educating testers during onboarding. He's going to be engaging them during our engagement phase. He's going to be sending them after action reports during closure. So his messaging is always tailored to whatever phase type we're in. And we'll talk about Ted in more detail a little bit later on in the course. Now that we understand phase types, let's head back into the project and learn more about how to schedule a test. All right, so I'm back here at the test planning page. And I went ahead and created 4 phases for my project. I've got my onboarding phase, my 2 engagement phases, and then to wrap everything up, a closure phase. Let's click into one of these phases so we can check out how it was built out. So let's start with basic usage. I've got my title there. I have my optional description, and then I have my phase type set as engagement. I also have a little info box at the bottom. So if you ever forget what a phase type does, just select it from the drop-down menu, and we've got that box there for you. Now below that, you can see a small checkbox, include regression features in this phase. And we'll talk a little bit more about regression features in the next part of this video, but including regression features does allow us to do some retesting throughout the project. So very neat feature to have when we're testing. Next up is scheduling the phase. So this is scheduled to start after Solaris onboarding ends on the 27th. So this phase is going to start on the 28th. And then it's going to end before advanced usage begins on the 2nd. So this phase is going to end August 1st. So keep that in mind when planning out your phases. Team access, this is an engagement phase. So we do want to make sure that our participants have access to this phase. And we can also toggle access individually for each team. So if we wanted to exclude a team from a phase or a feature for whatever reason, we can do that. But making sure all of our participant teams have access is just fine. We'll go ahead and click submit right there. And it's a similar story for things like our onboarding phase. So here we have the name, no description. It's set to start on a specific date, so the 20th. And then this ends on the 26th. And if we go down to team access, you can see that participants also have access to this. It's always good as a rule of thumb to make sure that participants have access to a phase and its features. If you're ever getting reports from your testers like, hey, I don't see any features right now, and you definitely know that there are phases and features for where you're at in the project, double check your team access. Just make sure that everything is good right there. And of course, we have closure right there at the bottom. Now that we understand phases a little bit better, we'll move into the next part where we talk about the different feature types we have, and we'll start adding some features to our phases. All right, so let's go ahead and start adding some features to our project. Now we've got two different ways that we can do this. I can either go to the top right of the test planning page and click on add a feature right here, or I can hover over an engagement phase and click on the plus button. Now, if I scroll down, you'll also see that we have some other feature types that are available to us: regression, new user, and phaseless. And it's a similar process here. If I hover over this, plus button appears up and it says new feature. I'm going to click on add a feature right here. And before we actually start creating a feature, let's start talking about the different feature types that we have within Centercode. So first off is going to be your standard feature, or what I like to call your phased feature. And these are assigned to engagement phases. These are going to make up the bulk of features within your project. During a phase, these are going to be presented to testers on the project home. And Ted will also communicate with them saying, hey, we just started a new phase. Here's what we're focusing on right now. Or if we're in the middle of a phase, Ted may say to a tester, hey, great job completing those activities. Here's some other features that I'd like you to focus on, etc. So these are your primary features here, and they're going to be sort of the bulk of features within the project. Now we also have phaseless features. Now phaseless features are optional, and they're not assigned to a specific phase. This is really great for like a miscellaneous feature type, where testers are still submitting feedback, but maybe that feedback doesn't pertain to any of the features that we have planned out within our project or within our test plan. New user features must be completed before participants can access the current phase and its features. This is really great for the first week of a test where everyone is in testing. You can have a set amount of features that everyone has to complete before they can move further. So that can be things like account setup and logging in for the first time and setting up the unit, etc. New user features are also great for testers who are joining in the middle of a project. So let's say, for example, we're in week 3, 5 testers had to drop out for whatever reason. Maybe they were unable to test or they were inactive, etc. Those new 5 testers that we bring in before they can access any of our current phases or features must complete those new user features. So this is great for features that you absolutely need tested or features that are prerequisites for the rest of the usage of the product. And finally, we have our regression features. And regression features can be periodically retested throughout the project. So let's say you have something like battery life. You want to see how the battery life is going to perform throughout the project. You can assign that as a regression feature. You can test it in your first week of testing. So let's say it's basic usage. And then once you get to week 4, it's the 4th week of testing, you can retest battery life again and get two unique sets of data. So you can see what it's going to look like in week 1 and what it looks like in week 4. And we actually have some features within Centercode that allow you to cross-check that data and roll it all up together to see exactly how the feature is performing. So regression features, excellent for retesting, and a really, really awesome feature within Centercode. Now that we understand the feature types better, let's hop back into the platform so we can see some of the features that I've built out. All right, so I've built out some features inside of our project here. You can see that basic usage and advanced usage each have two standard features each. Basic usage has a regression feature added to it, so that's what we did earlier when we set up the phase. And if I scroll down, you can see that that battery life regression feature is right there. We have two new user features set up as well. And then I have one phaseless feature, which is just other. So let's go ahead and check out a couple of these features just to see how they're built out. So we'll start with sync cameras. So you can see it's assigned to basic usage. We have our feature name and our feature description right there. Very basic, just giving testers an idea of the activity they're going to be completing. Our feature value is set as high. So this is a high priority feature for us. And it's going to naturally collect more impact score as users submit feedback on it. And we'll talk more about impact score a little later on in the course. And then we also have an activity here. Activities are optional, and they're designed to sort of guide users through the process of testing this feature. So for example, we have a list of different steps that they should go through here, removing the cameras from the box, waiting for the indicator light to blink, etc. Giving them some tips as well as to what to do if the camera is not charged out of the box. But you can see that we're never telling them to submit a certain kind of feedback. So we don't say, hey, test it out and then submit an idea, or test it out and then submit an issue. Really want that natural, honest, genuine feedback from our testers when they're completing these activities. So we never really guide them one way or the other. We just simply guide them towards how to successfully complete the activity. Effort activity here is high, so the feature effort is high. There's a lot of steps required for completing this. You can change this as well. We have everything from very high to very low in terms of effort. And it's the same with feature value. You know, you can have a very, very high value feature and then very low, and even a none where, you know, there's no impact score associated with anything submitted to this feature. And that's great for things like support tickets. So if you have like a support ticket feedback type, you can have it so all your support tickets don't actually collect any impact score. They're just there to get help from the admin team. Use FSAT star rating. We definitely recommend having this on for your features. When a tester goes to complete an activity, they'll be asked to rate it on a scale from 1 to 5. And then we're going to direct them towards specific feedback types based on their rating. So let's say they complete sync cameras and they rate it 1 stars. We'll definitely say, hey, it looks like you had an issue with that feature. Do you want to submit an issue? If they're submitting something like 3 or 4 stars, we may say, hey, how do you think we can make this better? You know, go ahead and submit an idea. And then if it's at 5 stars, we'll say, yeah, it looks like you are really enjoying this feature. Why not submit some praise and let us know what we did right? So FSAT star rating, we definitely recommend having this on, but make this activity optional is, of course, optional. You can attach files as well. So if you want to attach a guide, maybe a PDF or a video explaining how to properly test this feature, you can do that as well. You can add some internal notes for yourself. And then team access, we mentioned this earlier, make sure that the right teams have access to this feature before submitting it. We'll also go ahead and take a look at our regression feature right down here at the bottom. So it looks very, very similar. The only difference here is that it's assigned to that regression phase. So we have our feature name, our description, the feature value, a very short basic activity for users to complete, and everything else about it is really the same. And to testers, this looks the same when they're testing it. They don't necessarily know that it's a regression feature. You know, maybe in week 4, when we retest it again, they may say, hey, you know, that feature kind of popped up again during testing. But to them, it's a standard activity. They go ahead and complete it like anything else, and it doesn't introduce any sort of bias to their feedback, which is great. Now that we understand our features a little bit better, we've created them, we've assigned our phases, we've started to schedule everything in our project inside of Centercode, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can collaborate together outside the platform using the Test Plan Spreadsheet. All right, last thing we'll cover in this video is the Test Plan Spreadsheet. So up until now, we've done all of the scheduling of our phases and features in platform. But we actually have another tool available to us that allows us to collaborate with our teammates, build out our teams, our phases, and our features, and import them directly into Centercode. And we call that the Test Plan Spreadsheet. So up at the top, we have our Import a Test Plan button. I'll go ahead and click on this. And then up to the kind of middle right corner there, we have a Download the Template button. And this is a spreadsheet that you can download. You can use it in Excel or Sheets. And you can collaborate together with your stakeholders, your product team, etc., to plan out all the features and all the phases that you want to test in your project. So just go ahead and click on this button. It'll go ahead and download the template. And in a second, we'll switch over and check out a filled out template that I made earlier. All right, so here we are at the Test Plan Spreadsheet. This is the spreadsheet that I created for our Solaris project, and it consists of 4 different tabs. We've got one for teams, we have one for building out our phases, we have another one for assigning features to phases, and then our last tab is going to be for importing features directly into the platform without assigning it to a particular phase. We'll start with teams here. You can see that I'm building out 4 different teams. We've got one for Android users that's going to be for participants. We have another one for internal observers, external applicants, internal applicants, etc. And it's very easy to create new teams using the spreadsheet. So you just type in the name of the team, give it a description, add in your target number of users, and then define the team type. Now with phases, it's also very similar to what we have going on inside of the platform. We name the phase, give it that optional description, define the phase type, whether it's onboarding, engagement, or closure, and then define those start and end dates. So very similar procedure here. One advantage, of course, is that we can do this in bulk. We don't have to continuously keep reloading a page and submitting phases. We can do it all at once. And one exception you may see is that we can't necessarily add a pause phase here. We don't have the option to just add a pause phase. But if we had a space between 2 phases, Centercode is going to automatically populate that pause phase for you. Down below at Features with Phases, this is where we're actually adding in our features and assigning them to particular engagement phases. So we have basic usage, advanced usage, outdoor usage, etc. And we have our entire feature list right there. Once again, very, very similar to what you'd see in platform, describing them, assigning feature value and effort, whether or not satisfaction rating is factoring into this, whether they're optional, and we have that activity off to the side as well. One thing to note is that you can't add regression or new user features using the Test Plan Spreadsheet. So if you're considering adding those for your project, that does need to be done in platform. The Test Plan Spreadsheet is instead for your phased features and your phaseless features. And speaking of phaseless features, let's go ahead and check out the feature sheet. So I just have my one other feature here. That, again, this is for miscellaneous feedback. It is optional. There's no activity assigned with it. And when we import this into the project, it's just going to end up inside of our phaseless features section. Now, this is great if you want to first import your features and then assign them to phases later. But best practice typically is to use that Features with Phases tab to just plan everything out ahead of time and then import it into the project. So let's go ahead and head back into Centercode so that we can import our test plan and see what that looks like. All right, so we've got our test plan all sorted out. We've downloaded it to our computer, and now it's time to import it into our project. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop our file right there. It's going to go ahead and load that in. Should only take a second. Perfect. And you'll see right below where we can upload our file, we have this option to override the phase schedule. And what this does is it basically allows Centercode to schedule your project for you based on the effort and value ratings for each of your features. Ideally, if you were using this feature, you would put all of your features into the feature sheet rather than creating phases and assigning features to those phases. But if you already have a pre-existing test plan, you already know what you're going to test for each phase of your project, do it the way that I just did it in the previous part of the video, where you're creating those phases and assigning those features. This is really more of an edge case feature, but it is there for you if you want to use it. Next thing that we'll do is we'll make sure that participants have access to all of the phases and features here. So I'll click on that. You can see that both those teams have access, which is great. We'll click Submit, and we'll let Centercode do the work for us. Now, there may be instances where the test plan spreadsheet fails to properly upload into your project. It could be because a phase has been scheduled for a date in the past. It might be because a certain set of features have been assigned to an onboarding or a closure phase. Remember, those phases don't support features. We can't assign features to those phases. Or it could be that a team was not given a team type. So double check your test plan spreadsheet if any of that happens, for any errors, and then just resubmit. And it's that easy. Ours successfully submitted, which is great. We've got 4 teams, we have 6 phases and 11 features. So let's go ahead and review our test plan. And there you go. You can see we've got project onboarding, basic usage, advanced usage, outdoor, additional, etc. All those phases and features are properly in our project now. Now, one thing you may notice is that earlier when we created these phases and features inside the platform, they were color-coded. We had like a nice teal and a green and a purple. But with the test plan, these are grayed out. And that's because these phases are not published yet. So whenever you import a phase and features into Centercode, they're imported in an unpublished state. So they're not actually available to use yet. They're in the system, but they're not live. And this allows us to go in and, double check to make sure that everything's good, make sure that we have the right features and the right phases and that everything has been scheduled out properly. That way we aren't just automatically going right in with published features and phases that may be incorrect. So this is a great way to just do one final check to make sure everything is looking solid. And to publish a feature, or publish a phase, all you need to do is just hover over it, click on the Publish button. And now you can see that color returns to the phase. So I'll do the same with all of our phases here. There we go. We're looking good. And you may notice as I scroll down here that I left my regression features and my new user features from earlier where they were. I archived the rest of the phases and the features. They're in the View Archive button up at the top right. One more thing before we close out the video is that I can actually click into one of these phases and I can activate regression features for this phase. So I'll click Submit. You can see that those regression features are now available for testing in basic usage, our first engagement phase. And then we'll go ahead and test again in additional usage, which is our final testing phase, that is. Now note that when you're activating regression features for a phase, it's either you're testing all of the regression features you have planned or none of the regression features you have planned. It's really an all or nothing sort of situation. So take that into account when enabling regression features for a phase. Really hope you enjoyed this video. And in the next video, we're going to cover how to properly recruit for our projects, how to get testers in and properly verify them, make sure that we have the right people testing. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you there.